2, 1, 0. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Loose Ends podcast. This is episode number 3, and it is Wednesday. We're recording this a day after we usually do because of reasons we'll get into later. But so what are you doing this weekend, Spencer?
I'm actually traveling up to Joshua Tree with me, my dad, and my brother, and our cousins. We all just got, or my dad and my uncle got new Jeeps recently.
Sick.
So they want to test them out, get them dirty.
So my question for you is, what's the landscape of Joshua Tree? Because I know there's other places, like if you go to Moab, it's really intense. Like you get stickers on the back of your Jeep, actually, if you pass these really, really intense trails. So it is a landscape, like what's that like? Is it more just you just putt around or what?
It's definitely more in the putt around type. It's definitely not anywhere close to Moab, because Moab is very intense. You see insane looking rigs and all that kind of stuff. It's more just like it's not completely flat, but it's still definitely not anywhere close to Moab.
Well, the thing about Moab, people lose their lives out there.
Oh yeah, it's
Like
super
it's
dangerous.
intense. I've never seen it, but I mean, I've seen clips and videos, and places in Utah in general. It's just the most phenomenal places to Jeep in the country. But one thing that is always a concern, and this I was on the border between it was like Nevada and Utah, and we weren't jeeping, but we were in Lake Powell. If you know about Lake Powell, and just that area gets the most ridiculous weather I've ever seen. It's so unpredictable, right? We'll be in the middle of our day and we just see dark clouds coming, and we have about 20 minutes to get from wherever we are to the dock, or else we, have the fear of getting hit by a waterspout. We'll literally be going as fast as we can back to the dock.
Yeah.
And we'll just see a massive waterspout somewhere else. Utah weather is so unpredictable.
Yeah, for sure. There's a guy I saw on YouTube. His whole job is towing and fixing people's rigs in Moab.
What's his name? Isn't it?
It's like Trail Mater, I think. But there's so many different people that do recovery stuff.
There's a guy. His name is, I think it's Matt's Off-Road Recovery.
Yes, I've seen that too.
Yeah. He always starts off, I think he's the guy that starts off his videos with, so I got a call.
Yeah, it's super like just straight to the point. There's no intro, no anything.
But that's it. Like, that's needed. People everybody just gets stuck. It's whatever. But the weather, I just remember it's so intense. When I was there, we went through this little canyon. It was called Antelope Canyon. It was right next to Lake Powell where we were, and you just go off, the skirts a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything out there is it's red rock. That's all it is.
I know, it looks amazing.
So you have no way of knowing that you have no way of knowing that there's a canyon out there. It's just literally like a crevice in the ground. But when we went through, we took our tour. The day after we were there, we were on the water, and this intense weather started coming in, and so we had to get off. We were on our way out, and then we looked to our left. I have no idea east, west, south, north which way we were heading, but all I know is we were heading to the dock. Sorry. We look left, and we see a massive waterspout over the same area that Antelope Canyon is, and it turned out that people actually passed away.
Really? In that
day.
Same one?
Because the water comes in and just floods right. It comes in like 30 miles an hour, and it's super, super dangerous.
What's a waterspout? Is that just like heavy rain, or is that like the tornado on the water?
I think it's more of a tornado on the water, but it's definitely a real threat, unlike, what happened to us yesterday, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was crazy. We were heading to lunch, and everyone's phones just started going off with the Amber Alerts. It was really high pitched.
So the thing is at our school, everybody without fail has the same lunchtime, at least for junior high and high school. And so we were all on the walk from wherever we were down to the lunch area, which all just so happened to be in the same building, and all of our phones went off at the exact same time. And you can remember just looking around and seeing everybody. Nobody really panicked.
There were kids like fake panicking, but like, danger, like annoying, like little kids that were like trying to be funny, but like nothing very serious.
Nobody took it seriously. And Truth of the matter, though, was a little bit closer to the coast and on the beach itself. If you go to Coronado in San Diego, Coronado National City, that area, you can actually see videos of tornadoes kind of forming in the sky.
Wait, so we got that warning all the way in El Cajon just for Coronado?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's something about, air pressure and what's
Oh,
going
yeah.
on. It could happen anywhere, but don't you think that a tornado would mess Coronado up?
I don't think it would take so long for them to recover from that because it's such a small like island for
Think
that.
about it. Like, think about what would happen if the bridge got hit and the only way off the island, it would be the Silver Strand at that point.
Yeah, that's a far way to go around too.
I've never taken the Silver Strand, have you?
I have not, just because it's usually way easier just to go over the bridge.
I never even think about the Silver Strand, to be honest. But yeah, just it was really scary. But to see that video was scary. But once we were there in the moment, everybody was kind of like, we were not really
Curious.
perceiving it as a threat, though. If that makes
Yeah.
sense, nobody was really worried. It was, if anything, I appreciated the time because I can look back on it now, and we're gonna be able to look back and think more fondly on it.
Yeah, the funny thing is everyone was excited that we got to miss our class after
Right.
because they're keeping us in this safe area. But I was one of the only few that I didn't even have a class, so I was excited to finally go home and
Yeah.
just chill. So I was just stuck there in the cafe with no lunch because I was planning on just eating at home. But I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I wasn't. We couldn't film because, I was told to stay where I was. Don't go. And then eventually time just got away from us. So now we're here on a Wednesday. It is at Christian High School. Wednesday is almost the day of the Lord. We have chapel, and then later in the evening we all head to youth group and get our worship on.
Yeah, today's a big day because it's a sign up for the annual river trip that happens every year at our school, our church, where school/church, same thing. But we all go to the river, and then we have tubing, we have worship, we have individual time of reading. It's really just a good time.
To be honest, river trip in the first 5 hours, maybe even less, it always separates the weak from the strong. Think about it. Once you pull up on that bus, we pull up on this bus in the middle of nowhere, Blythe, California. We don't even cross the border to Arizona.
No,
It's
I don't
right
think
there.
we do.
It's right there.
Yeah.
But we land there and we go off farmland as far as the eye can see, and then once we reach we reach trees right next to where the river is, and so within the first couple hours when the buses pull up, that's when if any kid is gonna have an issue like roll an ankle or anything like that, it always
A
happens.
kid broke his collarbone 10 seconds from getting off the bus. Do you remember that? Last year?
I didn't. To be honest, our bus, so there were huge charter buses, and then there were Shadow Mountain, trolley buses, which they use to get people from the other the parking lot campus that they use as overflow, and we were in one of those. And we
So
go
you weren't
across
even
the-
there.
So I didn't even pull up until he had actually gotten injured, and until I saw him on the sidelines of grass volleyball, just kind of
Yeah.
hanging out.
I'm pretty sure he was. I don't fully remember what was happening, but I think he was trying to do a backflip on
In
flat-
volleyball.
Was it in
It was in
volleyball?
the middle of grass volleyball. He tried to do a weird soccer kick because he's really good at soccer, I think.
Uh-huh.
And
That's
this
so
guy-
embarrassing.
this
His
poor
mom
guy-
had to come out the first 10 seconds of us being there.
His dad's a doctor.
Really?
Did he stay the next day?
I think he left.
I don't really recall. But then those that weren't hydrated, dude, we had access to water was super easy. There was always a huge orange thing of powdered Gatorade. They would throw the powder in. We'd watch it happen. And then there was water that you could get as well. And even though we had there was fluid everywhere.
Yeah.
People within the first couple hours either got their heat exhaustion already. But
It was like 104
100
degrees, I
100 it was-
believe.
You're 104.
It
You were
was
spot on.
it was so hot, and it's hard. When you're being a kid, you just want to go, and you don't think about drinking water. So a lot of kids, like you said, I think one kid went to the hospital because he was so dehydrated, had to get like an IV.
Right. What was it, like an actual legit IV or was it liquid?
I think it was legit.
Oh wow. Was it? Did they have IVs on the campus?
No, they had to go to the nearest hospital.
I'm gonna say it
But-
was probably the most memorable weekend of the school year. But the only thing about River Trip is a lot of sports get in the way.
Yeah.
So like the swim team, where we go, them and track a lot of the time compete on the weekends, and in order to make the drive all the way from Southern California towards the coast to what essentially is the border between Arizona and California, they have to get up at around 2 a.m. and then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and they're there.
Oh, I remember that. That was
Swim, just getting out of our tent, and then they were just there. It's kind of like they were standing there.
yeah. I don't know where they came from. I think they had a meet the day we got there. So right after that meet, they came, or maybe the next morning after. I'm not sure, but they definitely did like just show up.
The day of school is always so. If you go to school the day everybody leaves for River Trip, it's eerie.
Really?
It's all this space, no kids, because everybody wants to go to River Trip.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone wants to feel included.
It's super exciting, but yeah, no, the feeling to be included is so major, as you just said. The feeling to be included is so major right now.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's how things are going?
Yeah,
for our
I
student
mean,
body.
Especially underclassmen and stuff too. Like no one really thinks of it as you get older. I mean, there's always people that still do that, like are more immature and think about what everyone thinks. But me personally, as I've gotten older, and it's also faith too. Like you just gotta learn that like no one looks back in time and looks at your hair was wrong that or
Right.
was weird that day. They only think of the good things,
Right.
or the really bad things if
'Cause if you're
that way,
actually
but-
genuinely responsible for doing
yes,
something wrong.
but no one looks at like the little things that, like, oh, they wore this one day. No one thinks about that. They only think about like what your actions were and how you acted in those situations.
the way that people remember the way you genuinely make them feel, the way you treat them.
Yes, that's
And growing in your faith, it's so exciting to see how little you actually care what other people think.
yeah. It's a huge thing. Like I said, it's just like it comes with age, for sure.
Yeah, and then the peak of that, scientifically, the peak of when you care the least about people is around 75, is what I saw. That's when you reach
Age?
you just do not care.
Well, yeah, that all old people just do whatever they want, but
Yeah, I agree. But the need is really prevalent around the beginning of the year, I'd say, and then it kind of like slowly fades out as we go. But River Trip is kind of one of those things where there's moments where just everybody is able to come together. And Shout Out You signups are tonight, aren't they?
yeah, they are. I believe it's live at 9 or something. I don't know, but
I will be going home by then.
yeah.
I am not gonna sign up. Sorry, Pastor Grant. I am going home during that time.
Speaking of Pastor Grant, we definitely gotta try to get him on this.
I'm
'Cause
calling
he's-
him out. I wonder if he's listened in on this. Probably
We'll
not.
see if he talks to us about hopping on this, but he's super full of wisdom. He's an amazing pastor for
You look up.
our high schoolers.
Those of you who don't know, look up Pastor Grant Todd. He's a Shadow Mountain High School ministry pastor, and he is probably the best at it. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, he's really amazing.
And I'm gonna send him. I'm gonna send him an episode. See what happens. Send him an episode of the pod. He knows we exist. We both started podcasts at the same time. Only his is probably slightly better than ours. So this past weekend, I watched an interview on. It was a podcast. I forgot his name is Sean something, but I'll say his name later because I've actually forgot. But it was a World War II veteran, and he was 98 years old. He was the only surviving flamethrower. This is the Sean Ryan show.
Flamethrower.
Sean Ryan. This is a Sean Ryan show. Now that I'm remembering, and he had the only surviving flamethrower from his unit in Iwo Jima, the Battle of Iwo Jima against the Japanese in
Really?
World War II. So he's the only surviving one from his company. Like, I'm not talking about how they all survive the war and then slowly but surely they pass away as they get older, and he just so happens to be the only one left. I'm talking about he's the only flamethrower that walked away from the battle, survived.
Out of how many, do you know?
I don't know. He was in a company of over 250 men. I think
wow,
it was like
that's crazy.
255 men, and 18 in general survived.
What's the job of the flamethrower guy?
Okay,
What's he
so
do?
the way this gentleman described it, and I consider World War II veterans to probably be the real heroes of the world.
Yeah.
That we should all, before they pass away, just take in all the wisdom that they provide. Anyways, World War II flamethrowers had one job, and that was to go in wherever there was a room, and wherever it's like, let's say there's Japanese trapped in a cave.
Yeah.
His job is to go into the cave dark, and whoosh. He says the 8-year-old man says whoosh, and the reason he says that is it's the action of not holding down the flamethrower, because he says in about 15 seconds of you holding down the flamethrower, the trigger, you're empty. You have 5
really?
gallons. You have 2.5 gallons on one side, 2.5 gallons on the other, and then you have a pressure tank in the middle. And the way that you sustain yourself as a flamethrower is you do short little spurts of fire. So as you go through a cave, you do a couple little bursts
Yeah.
to get to clean out the room. And turns out flamethrowers in World War II, specifically at the Battle of Iwo Jima, had a life expectancy of 4 minutes on the battlefield.
Wow. Because
4
they
minutes.
were they just picked off? Because they are super easy.
They were the first to die. Imagine getting shot in the tank; it blows up.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, imagine just being on the opposite side of that. Imagine this guy with this huge flamethrower is walking towards you. That'd be so scary.
But the scary thing is, these were like kids our age.
Yeah.
Being sent overseas. They were like 16, 17, 18. 16 was pushing it. A lot of kids back then tried to enlist in the army in World War II at the age of 16, and they were kind of pushed off until they were 17 or whatnot. They needed, parents' approval and everything, but
Yeah.
that's a very real reality, and it could happen again.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with how the world's going with Russia, Ukraine, now like Israel and Hamas and stuff.
What do you think? Do you think that America should be involved? But here's the way I see it. Israel and the Middle East, they have been at war for thousands of years. They've always been at war.
Yeah, I mean, Israel has to be at war to fulfill the prophecy of God
The
too.
prophecy. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, everything has to happen for a reason, and I'm pretty sure I believe it says every nation fails to, or am I just making that up? Or I feel like I remember
There's probably something.
saying that.
But the truth is, Israel has to, in the Bible, is going to occupy the land around it.
Yeah.
It's not just going to be this small little strip of land. It is going to eventually take over all of the countries around it. So if you look at it, it's got to happen. But if you're the United States, there's no way that we should be sending all of our young men over there.
Yeah, I don't.
And
agree with
women
that.
now too.
Yeah, I just don't think that's the right move.
Yeah, but I guess America over the last 20, 30 years, longer than that, has just been super interventionalist in what the rest of the world is doing. And it's
Yeah.
not a good idea.
I don't know. It's just you kind of gotta play your cards right. You can't just rush in right away, because then that's what causes more problems and makes you more prone to other enemies too. So you kind of just gotta either you can't fully push in, but you can't fully lay back. It's kind of like
If you see something wrong going, then you feel like we should do something about it type thing.
yes and no, because I mean we learned about who was it? I think it was Italy. We gave Italy weapons, but we couldn't fully send troops because then that would
Be full involvement.
yeah.
When was this?
I don't fully remember, but
It's probably World War One,
it might have been World War One.
because we were not friends with the Italians in World War II. They were part of the Axis powers.
It might not have been Italy then, but You know what I'm.
I
You
think
know what I'm
we were
saying.
funding Britain and France, and in World War One we were funding Britain and France, and we were pushed into the war because things like unregulated
Yeah.
submarine warfare. But do you remember about like hearing about this in history? It's more recent, but like 2003 Iraq War, stuff like that.
Say again, what?
So do you remember 2003, that era after 9/11 when the United States invaded Iraq?
Oh yeah, that was crazy. It was just like that was after 9/11, like
Yeah, it was
after,
right
the
after.
Twin Towers.
It was right after the Twin Towers fell. 2001, as soon as 9/11 happened, pretty much, we invaded Afghanistan. And then it wasn't until 2 years later where we invaded Iraq, where Saddam Hussein was.
Oh yeah. Didn't our history teacher say something about we shouldn't have rushed in to oh, maybe that's what I was thinking of. France asked us for help in
World War One.
yeah, and then they totally backed out, and then it kind of like sparked us into being into it. I'm saying this super badly, but
There are a lot of things happening. but
yeah.
one of the main things in World War One, not Iraq War, but World War One, was that Germany had actually threatened us. And there's a theory that during World War One, it wasn't actually the Germans who created the Zimmermann telegram, and the Zimmermann telegram is supposed to be the main reason that the United States entered World War One.
Yeah.
So the Zimmermann telegram was essentially Germany telling Mexico to invade the United States and take portions of it. But there's a theory that goes, Great Britain at the same time created that because because the truth is, or as the way history goes right now, that Britain had received the Zimmermann telegram and held on to it for a month, at least a month.
Uh-huh.
So there's a theory that Great Britain actually itself made the telegram
To get us
to
involved.
convince the United States to join World War One with a fake perceived threat.
Where did you hear that from? Because that's a crazy conspiracy.
I'm not sure the source, but
I mean, that would kind of make sense because we allied with Britain and they wanted more help.
we were already supporting them. Yes, they wanted full involvement from the United States in the war. We wouldn't give it.
Yeah.
We were still trading with Germany, even though we threatened not to. And so that was like essentially the tipping point of us joining the war, was the telegram.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Right? Just people lying, and lies have gotten us into war recently too. I mean, the Iraq War was off of a lie. You might not remember this, but George W. Bush said in Iraq that there were weapons of mass destruction. He said Iraq had nukes, and so thousands of people ended up being sent over to Iraq to fight in a war that was probably over oil.
Yeah.
Good things didn't really come out of that. Now, if you look at it, Iraq is being beaten up by the rest of the Middle East, and there's a huge vacuum there.
Yeah, it didn't help us at all.
He used to be secure. He was a guy that killed terrorists. It's true. He was a bad guy though. He was a horrible guy, but Saddam Hussein did at the same time kill terrorists. So I think that generation and all the generations before that of men that fought for America were a lot tougher, a lot different.
Okay, I have a question for you. So if we got in a world war tomorrow, how do you think our generation would look at that? Like, how do you think like the younger kids would deal with that?
To be fair, I believe that there are a lot of boys our age in the Bible Belt. I'm talking like Arkansas, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, states like that. The Bible Belt is a large portion of the South. I believe that they would probably end showing up and being the guys that really stand up for our country.
What about like, you know how like everyone says Gen Z is only addicted to their phone and like weak and like all this kind of stuff compared to other generations?
Mm-hmm.
And like that way, what do you think? Like without having Wi-Fi?
For the large part, most of this generation would not be capable of defending the United States. Like you're seeing right now, the United States is struggling to get people to enlist. Like they're really struggling with recruiting. So that's a product of it is the generation that's now becoming young adults, which is Generation Z. And so you're right. Those problems are big.
Yeah, I know. I just don't think with how everyone can choose what they want to be and stuff, there's so many ways of being out of it, I feel like you know how when they sent out in for World War II, they're like for people to enlist, like you were kind of forced to if you were 18 or older,
Right,
I believe.
there was a draft.
Oh,
The-
draft, that's
The
the
famous
word.
one was the Vietnam War draft, where like a ton of high school aged guys were recruited and forced to go fight overseas.
Yeah, I just don't think if they did a draft, there would be so many people trying to get out of it just because, like, I feel like our
Most kids would be
generation-
draft dodgers. They're not, you know, you
Yes.
don't think that they have the patriotism to want to protect the United States.
Yes.
Is what you're trying to say.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I just feel like our generation has a fear of commitment, and I just don't think that they could fully commit to, like, accepting that they're going to be in this war, if that makes sense.
They have too much fear, not enough pride, and
Yeah.
not enough to want to support and protect their country.
Yeah, they don't have, like, any drive for that.
No, you're completely right. It would happen. Like the generations that came before were just tougher. They were
Yeah.
tougher. They took punches. Like they worked hard. They had different lives than we do, and you know, especially because a lot of kids nowadays are they're kind of wrapped in bubble wrap by
Yeah,
even their
everything's
parents.
kind of handed to them, too.
But you know, just be able to take a hit and feel real pain is a big deal. And you can take pain. I know you have. You crashed on, you know, everything that I could name that a kid can ride. You've crashed on it.
Yeah.
So I do want to hear more about that though.
Well, actually, I have a story when I got my first dirt bike. So I believe we were having a garage sale at my house.
Okay, how long ago was this?
I want to say maybe 6.
6. You got your first dirt bike at 6.
It was a 50.
You could have been a prodigy. All 6 years old
Could
kids,
have.
all 6
Keyword could have.
Hey, all 6-year-olds are gonna start on a 50.
Yeah.
Starting at 6 is a good age.
But okay, so my uncle comes to our house with two red Honda 50s.
Oh,
So I was like, those look awesome. And my dad told me that he bought one of them for, I believe, $200, which is an insane steal.
I wanted one of those so bad when I was a kid. Like literally the red Honda 50.
Yep.
So when I was 6, I sat on one in a dealership, and I used to every time I'd go visit, I would sit on that motorcycle. I had my picture taken with it because I wanted a red 50, and I'm mad that you got one.
That's hilarious. But okay, so my dad told me we got it, and it took us. I mean, it was $200, so there was something definitely a little bit wrong with it.
Okay.
I think all we had to do was clean the carb, which is usually
Okay.
a big problem for like all that kind of stuff. So we fixed that up. We built this little track in our backyard, which had this berm that would go up. It was at a pretty high angle. So we built it where it would go up high, and while it was still curving go to a straightaway. I, as a little kid, don't really know what I'm doing. I fully pin it. I'm going up this berm, and then I turn the wheel too hard, and I hit this log, and I fully flip and land in this bush.
You endoed.
I fully endoed, yeah. And I just I was like yelling and stuff to like my dad to help me because I couldn't move. I was like,
Wait, you were stuck under.
I was in this bush with like, I think something was over my leg, but I mean, nothing. I wasn't injured.
Little Spencer in a bush.
It was
So-
pretty funny though.
So you were. It's just like a turn, and it's going slightly uphill, and then you're going straight. You go uphill, and at the top of the hills, there's a turn, sharp turn.
Yes.
So you were in the process of turning, and did you know that there was a log on the other side? Was that your first lap or whatever?
So the log wasn't in the actual way. It was because I turned too hard that I
Oh.
hit that. So it wasn't. I mean, it was totally my fault, but it wasn't the track's fault. For
no
sure.
tears, right?
No tears.
No tears.
But I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I wish I could have gotten more into it, but those like being into that
expensive.
stuff
Way
is
too-
expensive.
It's if you're gonna be the top in the nation, and that's how you have to be the top in the nation for stuff to become free.
Yeah.
Like if you're mediocre, and
don't get
you're-
anything.
you go to all the same races as the top kids in that sport in motocross. You go to all the same races as the top kids. You spend all the same money as they would, but they get sponsors, obviously.
Yeah.
You're the one that gets you take the L on that.
Yeah. I mean, most of those kids that start off young with rich parents,
Mm-hmm.
like profiting or not profiting, giving them money for it. That's the prodigies.
It's the parents' hobby.
Yes.
And then the kids get into it. But sacrifices in the sport of supercross and motocross, once you start racing their bikes, is insane. The sacrifice. So do you recall Ryan Villapoto?
It sounds familiar, but
we
not
were
fully.
we were kids when he retired. So we were about 7. He retired from Supercross in 2014, and he's supposed to be the second greatest motocross rider of all time, behind the GOAT, as they call him, a guy named Ricky Carmichael.
Okay, yeah.
And Ryan Villapoto won Supercross 4 times in a row. And when he had just won his second, and he was going on his 3rd year attempting to defend the title again, he had a CBS special done on him. So this was like a documentary of his life. His family was homeless.
Really?
He was homeless. In his developing years, when he started becoming a young teen, up to, well, he went pro at 16. They were homeless. His dad built a house, and as soon as the house was finished built, they had to sell the entire house
Really?
for $350,000 or whatever it was back then, and they spent all of that money racing. A lot of these kids don't have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, you better hope and pray that that kid succeeds. Because if not, you're
You're
done.
done.
You're done.
That's the way it is. Either you're all in, the entire family, regardless of if the kids have other things going on, no matter, regardless of where the parents work, it's all in.
Yeah.
No more working.
I think it's kind of funny, those parents that the little kids playing t-ball and their parents like taking it so seriously.
They're
like
traveling.
yeah,
across
travel
states.
ball and all that stuff. They think that their kid's going to be next like MLB superstar or whatever sport they're playing. I just think it's so funny how like it's mostly dads, but it's like
That can be damaging to kids. Really,
yeah.
it can hurt to see. It can hurt the kids when their parents are that intense about things. Like I remember I played t-ball, and some of the parents were so intense, arguing with umpires on every single call.
Yeah, they're ruthless.
We're 5. We're 5 years old, and there was a parent who, I remember this vividly. He got kicked out of every single game in my little league season.
That's
I was in
crazy.
t-ball. There was one parent that got kicked out of every single game because he would argue with all the calls.
Okay. I actually have a crazy t-ball story. So, I was playing t-ball at the time, but my brother actually had a game going on next to what happened. So this one kid, most kids have like Big League Chew or like gum and
Yeah,
stuff in their mouths.
The big tubs, right?
This one kid swallowed his gum and he couldn't breathe.
Was it just one stick, or it had to be more
I
than
don't
that, right?
fully know, but
Okay.
so my brother's game's happening on the left.
Okay.
There's 2 fields right next to each other.
Okay.
This kid, what happened was on the right field. So this kid started like choking kind of. So everyone rushed out there. I'm pretty sure at the end, he got like, to save his life, he had his throat like cut open to
Cut open.
get rid of the gum to save his life.
Did you know what was going on when it was happening, or were you just kind of confused that all the parents are running over someone?
I was confused because this is t-ball and I was 2 years younger than my brother. So this was kind of the same age
So
group.
was he 7? Were you 5? How old were you?
I was probably like 5-ish.
Okay.
So I mean at that age I'm not fully understanding what's happening, but I remember kind of like not fully recently, but a while back I was like, what happened there?
Mm-hmm.
So my parents kind of had to tell me because I mean at that age you're not knowing what's happening in the world.
Did you play at Rios Canyon?
No, it was actually Alpine.
Oh, Alpine. Alpine was a good league.
Yeah, Alpine was a sick league.
But, yeah, no, like parents, especially with allergies, a strategy and a method they use to get the kid to breathe is they will literally poke a hole in their throat.
Maybe that's what it was.
No, you can get a pen. Like, let's say I'm allergic to clam chowder because odd fish,
But all right.
and I eat it in a restaurant and I don't know, what it is.
Yeah.
The moment my throat starts swelling up and I can't breathe, sometimes they'll have to retreat to grabbing a pen and literally poking a hole in my
Does
throat.
that not make you like inhale like blood then?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. You have to do it in the right spot.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure it's below the Adam's apple. It's below the Adam's apple in that area between the Adam's apple and the collarbone. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you guys all false.
I don't know
info.
if I would trust any parent poking a hole in my throat with a pen.
But what I do know is that it actually does work.
I mean, if it saves my life, I would probably accept it. But
People have done it. People I know have actually done it when their child was choking. There's nothing scarier than when you're about to choke,
oh, it's like your heart just drops.
and it's harder than you think to choke. I think it's a little bit harder than you think because every little close call that I've had, I'm just able to cough
Yeah.
or swallow a little bit harder, and everything is fine. But so you were told what happened at the Little League field afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I understood that something bad was happening because parents from the stands were rushing onto the field, but I didn't fully understand that that kid could have definitely died.
Those were good times. I remember. Do you remember back when in elementary school? This is now. It's been almost 10 years since I was in like first grade.
Yeah, that's
It's been
crazy.
10 years. Around that time, do you recall all the game trucks?
What
Do you
mean
remember
by
game trucks?
Oh,
Game trucks.
yes,
Game
birthday
trucks.
parties. Those were crazy.
Birthday party game trucks where they pulled up in the kid's driveway, and it was like a huge semi truck with air conditioner and all the video games, and every video game you could ever want.
Those were the coolest kids on campus that had game trucks for their birthday parties.
And it was back on the day where you were at a game. No, sorry, game. Huh. Back in the day where the entire class that you were in got to go to a game truck, and every year at the beginning of Little League, I did it twice, but I know
Really?
that they kept doing this. For opening day, they always used to buy a game truck, and I didn't spend that much time in it because my parents, would tell me they're like, "Hey, other kids want to play, blah blah blah," and I didn't end up not going in the game truck, but we used, so you remember Jogathon,
Yeah.
those fundraisers during elementary school. So aside from going to birthday parties and aside from Little League baseball, the only other time during the year where we would actually be able to go, this was the only time it was ever consistently happening, is every year there would be a game truck in elementary school for those who raised enough money. And I'm not kidding you, you'd have to raise hundreds of dollars for 15 minutes.
That is such a scam.
15 minutes. I remember we got 15 minutes, and the last year they did it, it took so long to get everything ready, and the truck wasn't working that we didn't even get to play the games. We just got in the truck. It was weird, but game trucks were memorable.
Yeah,
for sure.
the only thing I don't like about the Jogathon and stuff was there's always these like kids that had a lot of money in their families,
Yeah.
and they always got all these like amazing prizes because it was all on how much you brought.
Right.
Or I mean, sometimes it was get your name out of a hat.
Raffles,
But like get your
raffles
name
were
in like get your name in a hat for bringing money, but still those kids that bring a bunch of money get their name in a bunch of times.
At least with that, other from the raffle, if you do the pay money to get prizes on that, like it's basically like a battle pass where you have to get a certain amount of money and then you unlock this prize and then blah blah blah. You keep going.
Oh yeah.
At least you're walking away with something. But when it's all when it's spill my water. When it's all raffle, you could walk away with nothing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I remember, yeah, I did that my 5th grade year. I got like 10 tickets and I threw it all in the Xbox One jar. I wanted the Xbox One. I'm like, I'm gonna get that Minecraft theme Xbox One, and I lost. And I remember the face of the kid that won, and he didn't even look excited. I was so mad.
It's always funny how like as a kid, little prizes now look so amazing.
It
Like,
just meant so much.
and I'm not saying the Xbox is like the Xbox is actually a huge prize, but usually it's funny. Like you go to like Boomers per se, and then there's all these like prizes that you can win for how many tickets you get.
Right.
You can spend like $40 and get 1,000 tickets, and 1,000 tickets gives you a bouncy ball.
No, that's facts.
Like those, I just don't understand. Like, there's no way to do anything or get anything good in those places.
Remember, 60,000 tickets and you get a GoPro.
Yeah, no one's ever getting the GoPro.
Did you ever play with the claw machines?
I used to, or I mean, I didn't usually, because my parents always told me they were kind of scams, which they definitely
absolutely
are.
are. I've never won anything on a claw machine. There was a kid I knew. This kid was famous at our school. This was in junior high, and every year, it was only 6th and 7th grade because 8th grade, had COVID and whatnot. But we would go to this bowling alley / like fun indoor park, and there was always a kid that won the claw almost every single time. And that kid was famous. He would win the stuffed animals, stuff like that.
I just don't know how like anyone could be skilled at that.
Is it skill or do you think it's luck?
I mean, if you say he got it every time, I would say there's definitely a little bit of skill.
There's unlucky people out there, and then there's really lucky people. I don't know anybody that's super lucky right now.
Yeah, me neither.
I would literally say their name on the podcast, even though it's something I'm very against. I would literally say their name on the podcast because it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm not too lucky though. All right, this has been a great podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And to wrap it up, I just want to talk a little bit about. To wrap it up, you are on day 28 of your Bible in a Year plan, and I'm dying to figure out how this week has gone for you.
Yeah, it's actually been going really good. It just being in the Word consistently is such a praise. A good verse that stood out to me is
You read Psalm 62, 1-2, is that right?
Oh yeah, that's what it was. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be greatly shaken. This helped me just like realize how powerful he is and how like weak I am and how I just need him. Because I mean, life will shake you up.
Well, what the rock is supposed to represent is something he's unchanging. He's solid. He's solidified. And so it's always nice to have something to lean on, because regardless of what you put your faith in, or regardless of what you rely on in life, everything secular, outside of God, even people, your pastor can let you down. You can be let down by anything except for God. And that's why we call him our rock, because he is the key to eternal life, and he's the only thing that we can rely on without being let down.
Yeah, that's crazy, because that's actually something that our pastor's been talking about recently at church, is just saying the world will let you down. The world will always have a chance to let you down. Mm-hmm. But God is always strong in his promises, and he will never forsake you. It's just amazing. Just
remember, to everyone listening right now, God's promise, which we can hold him to, is the gift of eternal life. And you know what? The idea of salvation and being saved, your life will not just become easier. The promise of being rich, being famous, having material gain, or even being married, things like that, having a family, those are not the promises of the gospel. The promises of winning a championship in sports, regardless of your sport, those are not the promises of the gospel.
Those are all just blessings on the road of your trip of life.
Right. And you need to be able to be completely fine with having none of it. And that's very hard. It comes with time. I'm not even there.
Yeah.
But eventually, in your walk with Christ, once you get further and further, you'll realize that if you just had the favor of one, and that's God, you can do anything. The things of the world will seriously let you down, and there's no promise to have a happy life. There's no promise for freedom. The Apostle Paul himself lived a life full of persecution and was in and out of jail. So just to remember that there is no promise, and we should be fine with even dying for our faith.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great spot to end on episode 3. Be sure to listen in next week for episode 4.
Yep.
Stay tuned, and we'll see you guys later.